What if I told you that Lenovo made their own version of the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4X? Would you buy that phone? Well, if you answered yes, then you would be talking about the Lenovo P2, a phone with a Snapdragon 625 processor and a huge 5100 mAh battery with it. So the P2 is in a huge race against the Redmi Note 4X, obviously with both phones being so similar. However, this phone, in my opinion, has two huge advantages. First, it's a lot closer to stock Android than Xiaomi's MIUI, and second, it has NFC. So before I tell you whether the P2 is better or worse than the Redmi Note 4X, let's see if this phone is good. So first, build quality. The P2 is made of aluminum and feels pretty premium, about the same size as the Redmi Note 4X. Size-wise, it's about the same as the Redmi Note also, meaning it's an average size for a 5.5-inch phone, and considering there's a huge battery in here, the phone is relatively thin at 8.3mm. However, this phone is heavy and it's really noticeable once you pick it up. On the front, you find a home button with 2 empty spots, no capacitive buttons, which is a big waste of space. On the sides, there is an iPhone-style slider that turns on power saver mode of all things. Like, why would you have a power saver mode on a massive battery phone? It makes absolutely no sense. It would have been better if it was a silent switch. Oh, and even worse, you will accidentally hit this button all the time, which can be annoying since it basically turns off a whole bunch of stuff, like Bluetooth, to save battery. Interestingly, we have a full HD AMOLED display here instead of the usual LCD, and the AMOLED display shows some pretty good saturated colors and nice contrast with deep blacks and primary colors. And the display here generally looks great, a lot more saturated than many if not all LCD screens. Max brightness here is just okay, maxing out at 500 nits, which could be difficult to see in sunlight sometimes. We have scratch resistant glass also. So here we have a single downward firing speaker, and the speakers here can get fairly loud, but it's honestly nothing special. Audio quality is also pretty average, not a lot of bass, slightly recessed mids and okay treble. Have a listen for yourself. Now moving on to battery life, and obviously I get something ridiculous. You guys remember my Mi Max 2 review where I got almost 24 hours of straight video playback? Well, here I get a little bit less, around 21 hours, which is still absolutely insane. I could not drain the battery completely on 2 flights and a layover. However, I was expecting at least better battery life than the Mi Max 2 because it has a smaller power-saving AMOLED screen, even taking into account the smaller battery. I could get 13 hours pretty easily over a long day. This is a lot of YouTube, taking photos and web browsing, still great, but I was expecting slightly better. That being said, unless you are a crazy person, you cannot kill this thing in a single day. There's also that battery saving mode, which in my opinion is absolutely useless. Moving on to software. So Lenovo has added a very light skin on top of stock Android, basically just the launcher. Everything else is pretty much stock and you can change the launcher to whatever you want. The stock Lenovo launcher is pretty unobtrusive and the software is rock solid, no crashes at all, Android 7.0 Nougat also. Launching apps is not that fast, about the same as other Snapdragon 625 phones and a lot slower than Snapdragon 660s and 835s. Multitasking is great with 4 gigs of RAM. Gaming performance on this phone is not bad, it can play most games pretty well, just some more intense stuff you have to lower graphics or resolution if you want to get good frame rates. Moving on to the fingerprint sensor, it's pretty fast, but accuracy is hit and miss depending on how you position your finger. If you use it upside down or sideways, it won't sense your finger sometimes. Moving on to connectivity, I get solid 2G, 3G, and 4G LTE connectivity with some very fast speeds for data, as shown in the speed test below. However, ping is super high. And not only that, Wi-Fi is fast even at far range, but ping is also really high in Wi-Fi also. Bluetooth range is excellent, and GPS is a tad slow, but once it locks on, it's pretty reliable. So the photo quality here is deceiving. You get plenty of detail, color reproduction is saturated, pretty good dynamic range, but there is some noise, slightly less than what you find in the Redmi Note 4X, if not for the noise. These photos could fight against some of the worst flagship cameras. I also found that in the smart mode, the camera has a tendency to start over or underexposing shots when you actually need HDR to correct the shots. The selfie camera here is pretty bad, it's only 5 megapixels and it's pretty low def, which I'm surprised by how bad it is on such a good phone. You can capture 4K video, and the 4K video actually contains some pretty decent amounts of detail, but if you move too much, you start seeing compression artifacts here and there. Alright, let's finish off. The Lenovo P2 is a great mid-range device without many weak points, and in my opinion this is a better buy than the Redmi Note 4X because it has close to stock Android and it has NFC for Android Pay. Lenovo really knocked this one out of the park, and if you want a Redmi or a Mi Max 2 but don't want Xiaomi's MIUI, the Lenovo P2 is for you. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Likes and subs will be appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.